vitamin deficiencies, scurvy, and other medical complications. That's exactly what you would expect for someone who eats a carnivore diet over the long term. At least that's the narrative from health gurus, doctors, and big pharma. So today I've got a treat for you. An interview with Rick Rodriguez. Rick's been a carnivore for just shy of 40 years. And you're going to want to watch this. Just before we jump in, I have a goal that I hope you can be part of. I'd like to get the channel to 25,000 subscribers by the end of March. YouTube tells me that a lot of viewers of my videos aren't subscribed. So if you've ever enjoyed a video on my channel, I would really appreciate if you could take the split second right now to click the subscribe button so we can get to that 25k goal together. Thank you so much, and let's get into it. We're joined today by Rick Rodriguez, and Rick has been a carnivore for quite some time. And I'm really excited to talk with you today, Rick. So thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So can you start by maybe giving us a little bit of background about how did you become involved with the carnivore diet? What started it for you?
Well, I started this diet before I even knew that there was such a thing. The only thing that I did think about is that we've had a lot of cats, and I know what cats like to eat. They eat basically meat. And when I was younger, I always was being influenced by these, I don't know if you call them health nuts, but my dad was very much into health food. My mother, not as much, but they were into the whole grains, low fat, fruits and vegetables, all the things that are supposed to be good for you, which meant that I usually started my day with oatmeal. Sometimes, so we had eggs, maybe one egg or so, but usually oatmeal and then fruit. And of course, got to have that orange juice. And of course, milk as well. But there's definitely a concentration on fruits and vegetables. My dad also did a lot of juicing. So that was a big deal there. And he used to make these pretty nasty vegetable juices, which he said were good. So I was indoctrinated into the idea that in order for something to be healthy, it had to taste bad. Another thing that they gave me was that horrible, what do you call it, tofu, the nasty little bean curd garbage that's supposed to look like cheese but tastes like dirt. That was, I don't even want to think about how bad that was. And I know my dad, he'd pour soy sauce on it and try to cook it to make it taste palatable. But as for me, I always preferred the bacon and eggs. Ever since I was a kid, I like meat. So, and once in a while, we didn't eat out much, but when we did, we usually went to a place called the Sweden House Smorgasbord, which is was an all you can eat restaurant. You can actually look it up online and see pictures of it. And I remember that one of the things they always had a man that had this white hat on top, and he would carve this roast beef. That was the first thing when you went to the smorgasbord. So I'd always want to get some of that. Then they had fried chicken, which I also enjoyed. Sometimes they had frog legs, they had Swedish meatballs. So I would always go for the meat. And then my parents say, well, you got to eat some vegetables. So I eat the salad always at the end. I made sure that I ate as much meat as possible in the beginning and then towards the end, the salad. But the biggest problem I had is that I was very skinny. I'm still skinny, but I was skinny and kind of small. And my parents were concerned. So they thought, well, maybe he needs to eat more. So they tried to get me to eat stuff like ice cream and more bread and some donuts and this disgusting Ovaltine and all these other things. So as I was growing up, I was also given a lot of vitamins. They did give me something I did like, which was cod liver oil. To this day, I love cod liver oil. And my
Oh.
mother was always saying, oh, I hate to give this to you because it's supposed to taste so bad. But I couldn't resist. Oh, good. It's time for my cod liver oil. Before I would get ready for school, they'd give me a spoonful of this. They had this metal can that, looked like a brake fluid can with a little cap on top. And then they give you a spoonful. Oh, can I have another? Oh, okay. Sometimes I'd have 2 or 3 spoonfuls of cod liver oil and enjoyed it. So I had these unusual tastes. And the other thing, too, is that when I was young, one of the things they would do is reward us with candy. It was always, if you did something good, they'd reward you with candy. And I never really liked candy. So a lot of times I'd put it in my pocket and then I'd forget about it. And when my mom went to wash the clothes, the candy would melt and it would stick to everything. And, oh, why did you do that? And, so, but this is what I went through. And then when I went to school, they'd give me my typical school lunch and whatever. But around 1983, I was helping my dad build a carport at the house. And then I fell through and I broke my arm. And then, my dad was working at the time as an aircraft mechanic, and my mom, she taught school, but it was the summertime, so she was taking courses for her teaching certificate. So I was pretty much left alone at the house. And then it came down to, well, I can't really go too many places because of the arm. And it got to the point where, well, I'm going to have to learn how to cook for myself. And then once I had access to the foods in the house, I always looked at the way my mom used to cook. It just seemed like so much work. I thought, it'd be a lot easier just to put some eggs or meat on the stove and cook that up. You don't have to have recipes or anything. That's what I did. So that kind of got the whole thing going. That's where it started.
That's so from 1983. So that's just on 40 years then.
Almost, yes. Although I
Wow.
did have a 6-month vegetarian experiment that I'll talk about later.
Hmm.
So I started, I guess it was August. It was either the end of July or August. I don't know the exact date, but I know that it was by August I was eating a meat-based diet. Now, at the time, I was still drinking milk, and I continued to drink milk until sometime when I was in college when I decided I didn't want to drink that anymore. But yeah, I started this meat-based diet. I didn't call it a carnivore diet. In fact, later on, I called it the heart attack diet. So it's a long story behind that too. But
That
yeah, I started since '83.
that book probably wouldn't sell so well.
No, no, it wouldn't. And when I was a kid, there was no internet. So
Mm.
I was actually getting my ideas from some of the TV shows. There was one TV show named, I'm trying to remember, it was Sanford and Son, and the other one was named The Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, I
And I
remember that.
watched both of them. Yeah.
Mm.
In fact, watching the Dukes of Hazzard is the reason why I decided to buy 1969 Dodge Chargers, which I still drive to this day. That's where I got the name of my YouTube channel, Charger
Oh,
Mopar.
that's where the name comes from.
Yep.
Ah, okay.
And I love my Chargers.
Oh, nice. Nearly 40 years. You started doing this diet the year that, at least in Australia, Return of the Jedi was in the movie theaters. Like you've had no health problems over the years?
Oh, well, I got a really bad flu when I was on the vegetarian diet. That's probably the
Hmm.
worst I've ever had. And I've been in, I live in Miami, so I've been in several car accidents. But, you know, compared to everybody else I know, I don't have any issues. In fact,
Hmm.
I seem to be healthier than some of their kids. Some of their kids in their 20s have more problems than I do.
It's funny you say that because that's the feeling that I get after even I've only been on this diet 7 months, but I feel like it reverses the aging process in a lot of ways. I mean, perhaps not in appearance, but certainly the way you feel, certainly the way you move, and certainly in like flexibility and stuff like that, you know? Um,
I don't think that you could change the appearance very much because once the damage is done, I don't think it's
mm,
reversible. But like you said, internally, yes, if you could reduce the inflammation, it seems like it wouldn't be that difficult to feel better because the few people I know that have changed their diet have had improvements. In fact, a friend of mine that's 77 years old, he was stuck in a nursing home for a while and he's been able to get around. Now, he still has issues. And if he strays off the diet, they can be pretty severe. But I think the
mm.
younger you start, the more lasting the results will be.
Like, have you had people around you that have started or had, considered or actually started doing the diet because they've seen, wow, Rick doesn't have the same joint pain as me, or Rick doesn't have the same problems with this as me.
Well, I have. And recently it's been more than ever. The first one that I remember was a friend of mine who was into bodybuilding, and this was back in 2001. Um, he had kind of gotten out of it, and then he was putting on weight, and he was complaining that if he didn't exercise, he'd get heavy. And he'd watch me eat, and I could devastate the buffet. I mean, you'd be amazed at how much food I can eat. I can eat, like they sell these 10-pound chicken bags of chicken leg quarters, and I will fry those in lard, and I will eat that whole bag within 1 or 2 meals. When
Mm.
I make my hamburger, and I don't normally make, if I make a bun, it's going to be a pork rind egg mixture, which everybody laughs at. They call that the heart attack bread. But I'll put 3 patties in a stack and then put that on there and then put bacon and put lard all over it. And I'll eat that. And they said, hey, you know how many calories that is? That's got to be 8,000 calories. I said, yeah, probably more like 9,000. How in the world do you eat so much food and you don't gain weight? Well, I don't know. Maybe calories don't matter. So, well, he looked at me eating all that food and thought, maybe if I just eat like my friend Rick, I won't have a problem. And when he started to do that, even though he wasn't exercising much because he had some, injuries, whatever, he started to lose the body fat, but he wasn't losing the muscle. So he
Mm.
did lose weight, but then he says, this is like a miracle. I can't believe this. So since then, he's been on that diet. He does work out. I mean, I think he owns a couple of gyms and a shopping center. He moved away years ago, but he's done quite well. And most of the other guys he used to work out with, they've become overweight, and a lot of them have health issues. They get married, they get fat, which is one of those
Mm.
things. But no, he's the first one. And then for a long time, nobody followed me. In fact, it wasn't until maybe 3 years ago that I started, people that I knew were saying, well, I'm seeing this stuff about a carnivore diet. Isn't that the way that you eat? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it is. And I started to look at it. I wasn't aware of this carnivore community until probably 2020, I think it was, when we had
Mm.
the virus. And I started to look around, and I remember one of the first ones I saw was that fruity guy, Paul Saladino, and then you have the monster, yeah, Sean Baker. I'm thinking, oh, this guy's a year older than me, and look at how good he looks. And then, like the friend of mine that's 77, he discovered Ken Berry, and that's the one that he really likes to follow. And I started to watch him. I said, okay, well, this all makes sense. This is what I've done most of my life, and now it's a trend. So how does that work out?
Even the short time I've been doing it, it feels like this is just kind of getting momentum. Every day there seems to be more people popping up on social media, whether it's Twitter or YouTube or whatever, saying they're doing the diet. Um,
Right.
I think it's good, people are realizing that, the standard advice that I've been trying for years, just not doing anything.
Well, that's it. That some people say that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I've
Mm.
known many people when I had my business and I work with other people, they get on this calorie counting quest, and they can't eat this because it's got too many calories, and they can't eat that because it's got too much fat. And then it's so frustrating to watch these people suffer for no reason. And then they
Mm.
get mad at me, I go and eat a bunch of meat and fatty foods. And like, how in the world they said, oh, you're a different kind of person. It's in your genetics. You just wait until you get to be 40. You're going to put on that weight fast. Well, I heard that in my 20s and 30s, 40s. I still hear that today. Oh, just wait till you get to be 40. I said, oh, okay. I passed that point more than a decade ago. What? Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it just seems like unnecessary suffering. Why do they put themselves through that when the solution is so simple?
Yeah, I feel like once you kind of start to move in this direction and you start to realize I don't have to think about anything. I just need to listen to my body.
That's
As
right.
long as long as I'm giving my body what it needs, all I need to do is listen to the signals that it's giving me, and everything else is going to be all right.
That's a good way of putting it. That's like, I
Mm.
get criticized a lot because I don't go to the doctor. I haven't been to a doctor since 1996. I haven't been to a dentist since 1986. They said, well, how do you know? I mean, don't you need a checkup? I said, well, if I get to the point where I don't feel well, I try to make adjustments. And if it doesn't work, then I'll have no choice. I'll have to seek out medical help. But as long as I'm able to do what I'm doing and I don't have any major problems, I don't see really a need for it. But
Hmm.
people, they get, I don't know. And a lot of people I know, they just neglect things and then they go to the doctor and they give them bad news. Then they go overboard. They put them on a bunch of pharmaceuticals and then they have to make adjustments and then they can't stick with it. But yeah, it's like you said, as long as you are doing something that makes you feel better, I would assume that it works.
Sorry, Rick, can we take a step back for a second? Do you mind telling me how old you are?
I'm 54. I will be
Fif-
55 in June.
50. Okay. And so you started this in 1983. So, yeah, as you said, about 14 years old. When you were that
15.
age and all your friends are kind of hanging around and they're drinking sodas and they're candy, chocolates, all that thing, what was their reaction to you kind of, not eating those things?
Well, it's been a long time, but what I do remember is that back then, yeah, the diet soda was sort of taking was becoming more popular. So they're saying, well, if you don't want to drink regular soda, why don't you drink diet soda? And diet soda, I mean, what is in that? I mean, who knows what kind of chemicals they put in there?
Mm.
The same thing with the food, the candy. The one thing that I do remember the most was the amount of snacking. You had the corn chips, and then you had what was the other one? The crackers. They had these little crackers. I can't remember what they were called. Snackwells. They had all these crazy commercials, and then Snackwells, and then of course you had the regular fast food. And then back then, Wendy's was very popular because they had the commercials. Where's the beef? You know. So yeah, they want to go to eat somewhere. Oh, you want to go to Burger King or McDonald's? I said, no, I don't want to go to Burger King or McDiarrhea or Wendy's hot and greasy. It's well. So eventually, once in a while, I'd say, okay, you want to eat out? We'll go. We can go to Wendy's, no problem. But I'm not going to eat the chili, and I'll eat the hamburger, but I'll give the bread to the ducks. Like, oh, you're crazy. Why would you do that? I said, because I only like meat. Now, a couple of my friends, they didn't think it was crazy. They thought, oh, well, eating meat is good. But a lot of other people, especially the girls, they thought I was nuts. Oh, you're going to get fat. You're eating all that fat and all that grease.
Mm.
That's nasty. But then again, I had a handful of friends, and some of them I still know to this day. In fact, the one person who was trying to call me earlier is a friend I've known since the 1980s. But his health isn't the same. Let's put it that way. He's on I don't know how many pharmaceuticals. It makes me laugh when I see. I said they're turning you into a chemistry experiment. All the things they got you on. His biggest thing is blood pressure and blood sugar, and his blood pressure can be really high. We're talking 140 something over 90 something. Meanwhile, my
Mm.
blood pressure has always been low. I mean, even back then, well, your blood pressure is too low, you're going to get a stroke. I take my blood pressure now, it's like 90 over 60. So,
Mm.
but back then as a kid, it was the same thing,
Yeah, it's really like it's just feed yourself right and it's just oiling the machine.
more or less.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people don't understand that when I was younger, I was considered to be killing myself. In fact, at one time, that's what I wanted to do because I actually wanted to get a heart attack when I was much younger. But then it became a joke. Later on, it's like, well, people make fun of you. Oh, here comes the heart attack diet. Oh, he's wanting to eat all the fat. And like the guys that I knew that used to work out, they would throw the egg yolks away. I'm like, don't throw those egg yolks away. Give them to me. And I'd eat them. And oh, you're gonna die of a heart attack. That's all that
That
cholesterol. It's gonna
that
kill you.
that's right, because the 80s was when the egg white omelet was super big, right?
That's
So,
right. And they were throwing the egg yolks away. Thinking, why would you do that?
mm. So do you mind me asking what was the reason you were trying to literally give yourself a heart attack?
Well, again, I grew up in the pre-internet age, and
Mm.
we had TV shows. And if you've ever watched Sanford and Son, you had the old man and his son, and then every time that he had a problem, he'd go, "Oh, Elizabeth, this is the big one. I'm coming to see you, honey." Pretend like he has a heart attack. And so it always seemed funny to me because I was so skinny, and I just felt, it's hard to imagine, but when I was back then, even the girls were taller than me. It was very embarrassing. And a lot of
Mm.
times I just didn't want to be around. I'd rather just be by myself. I don't want to be around other people. You get around these other kids in school, and some of them, they're built, they got muscles, they're tall. You look up at them like, oh. So I thought, you know what? It'd be better to die of a heart attack. I didn't want to kill myself because I don't believe in that. But I thought if I had a heart attack and just, died like that, it'd be a good way to go, because by the
Mm.
time that they try to revive you, you're done. It's not like getting cancer or something where you're going to suffer and, or get a disease, but you get a heart attack and just, oh, and that's it. And back then, generally, if you had a heart attack, you probably died. It's not like now where they have all this technology. They can stick stents in there and they can, do whatever they have to. Back then, you just, and you're gone.
Mm.
So I thought that would be kind of interesting. But the thing was, when I started eating this way, I actually felt better. So I thought, well,
Mm.
maybe you feel good before you have a heart attack. I don't know. But
Mm.
it just seemed, as a kid, you don't think straight when you're a teenager, but it
Yeah.
just seemed like a good idea.
There, around that time, there must have seemed like quite a bit of pressure, right? So just to don't eat that, like you say, you're going to die. Everyone's saying you're going to die of a heart attack and all that kind of thing. Because I mean, I grew up in the 80s as well, and I just remember everything was low fat, and there was all the commercials for the ladies wearing those crazy aerobic outfits and doing their aerobics, and low fat yogurt and Tab. Did you have Tab in
Yeah.
America?
Oh, we
Uh,
had Tab. They had with the bottle that would, like, an hourglass, and it said
yeah.
1 calorie Tab or something like that. Oh, amazing. Meanwhile, I was thinking about how much more fat could I eat. Maybe I should make an egg yolk drink or something like that.
Mm.
But and it just gets ridiculous. And then you had Olivia Newton-John with that the disco thing, Let's Get
Let's
Physical.
get physical. Yeah.
I just
But
thought the whole thing was funny.
yeah, it just seems so ridiculous looking back at it now, though. And I
Yeah,
mean,
remember the leggings the women used to wear? They put these stupid, like, half socks on their legs, and they wore these funny looking clothes, and they'd walk around, and they put the band around their head to make them sweat. And they think
yeah,
the more they sweat, the more weight they'll lose.
yeah. But that was all. Who was the exercise guru at that time? Was it Richard
Richard Simmons?
Richard Simmons? That's right.
Oh, I laughed at Richard Simmons, like, oh my goodness, what is that? A woman in man's clothing or something? This guy was a wacko.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
and
mean,
then he was like
he's
the Liberace of fitness.
yeah. So there's some weird videos of him being like attacked, well, almost attacked by other exercises on his show or something, like putting their legs around him and all this kind of thing. Like I think it's all in a joke, it's all in jest, but it's
Right.
yeah, it's kind of weird.
It
But
was it was weird. And this whole fitness thing, the whole aerobics thing was crazy. And then on
mm,
top of that, you had all the girls here wearing their designer jeans, and they were always trying to stuff themselves in these really tight jeans. And they're
mm,
just thinking, man, you're going to bend over and things going to go and just blow up. This is crazy. I mean, the 80s, and then the hairstyle. The one reason
mm,
I greased my hair like I do now was a rebellion against the 80s, because I hated the 1980s. I didn't like the style. I didn't like the music. I liked the 1950s and early
mm.
60s. So I thought, you know what? That's the most uncool thing you can do. I'm going to make myself look like, and they used to make fun of me. Oh, you look like something from Happy Days, which was another
Mm.
TV show we had. And so I greased it down. Plus, when I was younger, the kids used to like to mess up my hair. So I put lard in my hair. And that way, when they stick their hand and it's all greasy and they go, oh, how disgusting. And they don't mess up my hair anymore.
Ah,
But my
is that?
mom told me, yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
my mom told me that if you put lard in your hair, it's going to fall out. Well, guess what? It never did.
Never fell out. So,
Never fell.
were they messing up your hair because you were shorter at the time? It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, because they could reach down and do that. And, I used to try to keep my hair combed and relatively neat, but they go and mess it up. I go, ah. Then sometimes they spit in it. And it just is so frustrating. But
Mm,
you put lard on there, even if they spit on your hair, you just wash it off in the water fountain, and that's it. There's no
mm.
problem. And eventually they gave up. Of course, when I got to high school and I got taller, then they really gave up.
Yeah. So you just shot up when you were in high school.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
grew at a rate. Now again, I haven't been able to make the video yet. I'm busy and I had computer issues and whatever, but I do have a picture from my junior high yearbook. And when you see how short I am compared to even the girls, it's shocking. But by the time I
Mm,
finished high school, I was like the second tallest kid in the school. So I grew at a rate that even my parents couldn't figure out. How in the world it gets so tall? It doesn't make sense. No one in the family's ever been that tall. But
mm.
yeah, I had grown at least a foot since I started high school till the time I ended it. And then
Wow.
at that time, they were always saying, well, do you play basketball? No, I don't play basketball. But when you're tall, everybody thinks you play basketball.
So how tall are you?
6'6".
6'6".
Yes.
Wow. You're almost a foot taller than me. Wow.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely tall. When I walk under
Wow.
doorways, sometimes I can feel my hair rub the top, and ceiling
Yeah.
fans can be a little scary at times.
I can imagine. You would struggle in Japan.
I can
Even at
imagine that.
at 5'7", I still have to bend down to get under some doorways. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's I mean people are getting taller as, as time goes on, people get taller here, but yeah, very small feet and generally quite short. So
I wear size 15 shoes.
size 15, what's that
Yeah.
in size 15? Oh
I'm
wow.
not sure.
So
They're
you wear
general.
size
I have trouble
15. That
finding
I
them.
think I'm about a 12.
I have trouble finding them a lot of times. But
Mm.
I just have to keep looking.
Fast forward from 1983, almost 40 years. What does a typical day's eating look like for you?
Well, I can tell you what I've eaten so far. I got up this morning and I walked outside. I looked around the yard. I found 3 duck eggs. So I went ahead and I cooked those duck eggs. I had some pork that I had in the refrigerator, some pork shoulder that I cut. So I cooked that. And then let's see what else. I had some cheese to go with it. I have some hard cheddar cheese, and that was my breakfast.
Mm,
Lunchtime, which will be in a few hours, I'm thinking about I have some beef that a beef roast. I'm going to make a stew out of it. So I'll probably have that and then some of my homemade yogurt to go with it. And that's probably it for lunch. And then for dinner, I haven't decided yet. I do have some chicken in there. I'll probably fry that in lard and then maybe have some strips of beef to go with it. It's hard to say. It usually
mm,
goes by how I feel, but generally breakfast is going to be eggs and some meat, and lunch is usually meat. Typically either some shoulder cuts or some ground beef, whatever, and then dinner could be anything. It varies, but it depends on what I have. If there's a sale or somebody gives me some meat, I'll have that. And if I'm lucky enough to catch an iguana or duck, I'll cook that. But whatever's available, I'll eat it because I have a very strict policy of not letting anything go to waste. So whatever meat I have is going to go and be used.
yeah. So sorry, I just lost the video there for a second. Um, so that's something I remember from one of your interviews. You were talking about iguana.
Yeah,
So
I
how
love
how
iguana.
often how often do you eat iguana?
Well, I used to eat it a lot because they were taking over the neighborhood, but now I've eaten so many of them that I rarely see them. So I have to go visit a friend. Yeah, I have to go out to a friend's place, go hunt iguana. So I'll go out there and, usually I'll get the crossbow and I'll wait. And then when I see an iguana up a coconut tree or something, I'll try to shoot it. I don't want to use birdshot or anything because then you get those little pellets. And I've chipped a couple of teeth over my time chewing on iguana meat that had pellets in it. So I'd rather shoot it with a crossbow, and then that way you get it, and then it's not going to run too far. Because if you try to use a pellet gun, a lot of times you'll hit them and they'll run, and then they'll go into the canal, and then they'll die somewhere else where you can't get them. But around here, usually I'd catch them with a net. I'd get them. I'd wait until they're over there eating the papayas, and then get a net and catch them, and then I can go ahead and kill them here. Sometimes I'll just take the whole iguana and put it in the freezer, and then when it's frozen, then I can process it. Because that's what happens in Florida. Whenever we get cold weather, which isn't very often, the iguanas will go dormant, and you can actually pick them up off the ground if they fell out of a tree. But
Ah,
yeah, when I can get them, I'll get them. It's like going fishing. It's the same thing. You go fishing, you catch some fish, you go catch some iguana, and some places we even have wild chickens. And if I can catch those are pretty good. I mean, wild chicken meat is tough, but it's tasty.
so what does iguana taste like?
Iguana is somewhere between chicken and fish. It depends on what they're
Uh,
eating. The iguanas that
okay.
live around here taste more like chicken. The ones that live near the coast, they taste more like fish.
Okay. And you just fry that up or something? You just fry it in lard or
It depends. Sometimes what I'll do, I'll boil the iguana. Generally, the iguana has to be boiled to get the skin off. I actually had a
uh
short video I made of that. So you section the iguana, you put it in water and you boil it, and then you can slit the skin and peel it off. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to get the skin off because it bonds so well with the meat. And then
mm,
after you boil the iguana, you could take it and you could fry it. But if you're going to fry iguana meat, you have to coat it, you have to batter it. So what I'll do, I'll get some pork skins that I made and I'll mix it with egg and then just put egg on the iguana, roll it in the pork skins that are crushed up, and then fry it in that. And then you get, sort of like a battered iguana. The Southerners, they love it. Otherwise, I just boil it. Sometimes I make a stew. I know some people that make iguana curry, but I usually just get some water and salt and put the iguana in there and let it heat up, and then when it reaches the right temperature, I'll take it out and just start picking off the meat and eating it.
wow. I'd love to try it one day.
It's
Yeah.
good. It's really good. You get the right iguana, it tastes great. That's
Yeah.
like down here, some people hunt alligator, and alligator meat is similar, but alligators are carnivores, so the meat isn't quite as good as it is on the iguana meat. The iguanas, they're basically herbivore. They eat fruits and plants, and that's pretty much all they eat. So their meat is actually quite good.
Yeah. Yeah, I had crocodile once, and that was kind of nice. It felt like a kind of an in-between fish and chicken kind of thing.
Right. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. That's
Mm,
what it is. Pretty much the same thing.
yeah. So yeah, I like all that I like trying all those kind of things. Kangaroo was nice to try,
I've never
but
had that.
the problem with kangaroo is there's no fat on it.
Mm.
So
Well,
it's
that's
really tough.
that's true of a lot of like wild chicken doesn't have any fat. Most of my
Mm.
ducks don't have much fat. So yeah, those wild meats they tend to be lean.
When you're eating, do you ever eat like organs or liver or anything like that?
Oh yeah, in fact, that was another thing. I used to watch that show, The Dukes of Hazzard, and I watched Boss Hogg eating raw liver. So when I was growing up, I started to do that just to disgust everybody else, thinking how funny it was. But I actually enjoyed it. So what I would do is take the liver and then I would put it, I'd take, well, sometimes I'd cook it, but cooking the liver is just not, I don't know, it doesn't taste as good with a beef liver. Now, chicken livers I prefer cooked because I don't eat any poultry raw because poultry is not a safe meat. So small animal, you're more likely to get bad results. So those
Mm.
I cook. I'll usually just saute them. But I've had I've had beef liver raw, and usually what I'll do, I'll marinate it in either vinegar or sour like limes. I have sour oranges here, so I'll take the sour oranges and juice them up and put the liver in there
Mm.
overnight in the refrigerator, and then eat raw liver. I've also had duck liver. I usually, I cook the duck liver. So duck liver, chicken liver, beef liver. I had another liver. I'm trying to remember what animal it was from. Might have been pig liver. I don't remember that I cooked. But yeah, I do eat it occasionally,
Mm.
maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, whenever I can get it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So not averse to it, but you're not eating it. You're not eating it a lot.
I don't eat it a lot because I don't think if you look at what the animal's made out of, it's mostly muscle meat. It's not really liver. I don't think it's a good idea to eat too much liver because I've heard stories about people eating too much liver and getting constipation or having blood issues or whatever. So I try to keep the liver in proportion. But I do like it.
Mm.
I actually like the taste of it, but I don't eat that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had calf's liver. I spent some
Mhm.
time in London. It's quite seems to be a quite popular dish in England. But they put so much sauce and garbage on top of it. You basically can't taste what you're eating. You know, you could be eating an old sock and you don't know. You know?
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem here in the U.S. With a lot of the Southern cooking, they have their barbecue, but they saturate everything with sugar sauces and spices and all this other stuff. They
Mm,
talk about, oh, it has to have a rub, it has to have steak sauce. And whenever I go to a friend's place and they have a barbecue, I said, I don't want to see a single bottle of steak sauce or I'm going to throw it in the lake. Don't put
mm.
that garbage on my steak. Oh, but it makes it better. No, 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 no. I want to taste the meat. I don't want to taste sugar and vegetable oil. No, 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 no. And I have to argue, but now they know, if you're going to cook Rick a steak, don't put anything on it or he'll give it to the ducks.
The ducks can enjoy the porterhouse steak.
Oh, I give the ducks anything that has sugar on it, bread and
Mm,
pasta, whatever. If somebody gives me something I don't want to eat and they insist that I have it, I give it to the ducks. That's
mm.
all. I've had people give me breads and the bread's going bad. Okay, I give it to the ducks. But yet they say, oh, don't feed it to the ducks. It's bad for them. So yeah, but you're eating it. What's the difference? Well, we can eat it, they can't.
Yeah,
I don't
it's,
think
it's
so.
it's bad for them the same way it's bad for us. Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point.
The
Yeah.
thing is, I don't worry about my ducks because they eat mostly insects and plant materials. So even if they eat the garbage, they can always go out and find the good stuff.
Mm. So are these just ducks that are these actually your ducks, or they just kind of they stay around your place because you tend to feed them, or
Yeah, well, they're not my ducks. I live in the suburbs, and it's illegal to have any kind of livestock because the government here is crazy. So
Mm,
they're just neighborhood ducks. They're the Muscovy ducks, the ones that people don't like. And I feed them, and they hang around here. I have a little pond where they can live in. And what I do, I got my neighbors on my side because we had a terrible overpopulation of ducks. They were just taking over the neighborhood, ducks everywhere. So I said, look, when you see the ducks nesting, call me and I will take care of it. And what I do, I take the eggs out, I replace them with fake eggs, I leave them one or two real eggs, and the mama will sit on the nest for about 5 weeks, hatch the real eggs, and then she walks around with two ducklings. But before that, there could be 20 ducklings. Sometimes there'd be ducklings everywhere, and they were just taking over. And then people like to feed them, and they don't want to
mm.
get rid of them. So I said, okay, we can manage the population. If we get too many eggs, I eat the eggs. And then on top of that, we get too many ducks, I'll just start eating the ducks. And then that way, yeah, I mean, it keeps the population stable. And I try to explain to one of the vegan ladies that I know that thinks that I'm a murderer. I said, when you have too many animals and you don't have enough food, what's going to happen? They're going to starve. They're going to either get a disease or starve. And there's another lady not that far from here that feeds the ducks, and she must have had over 100 ducks. Then they had a virus and they were dying right and left. There were ducks dead all over the place. There were ducks with what they call angel wing that was deformed. They had feet that were it was terrible. It looked like a mutant duck factory. But my ducks around here, they're healthy. There are no, injured ducks. I keep the population below 30. And when we get too
Mm.
many ducks, then I just pick the ones that are the meanest and the most difficult to deal with. I send them to the side yard. I have a special place where I feed them lots of food, lots of fruits and vegetables, and there's bugs over there for a couple of weeks. And then when the time comes, and then
Mm.
Ducky ends up in the kitchen, and Ducky's delicious.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and duck meat, I've eaten it, but it was so long ago. Duck meat's kind of fatty, right?
Not
No?
these ducks. The
Uh,
regular the regular duck that you would buy, like for example, I think the Asians were the first to domesticate ducks.
uh-huh.
And they developed what we call the Pekin ducks, which are white and they have
Uh,
the yellow beak,
uh,
and they're the cute ducks that you see a lot on the internet. Well, what we
yeah.
have here are called Muscovy duck. They're
Uh-huh.
like the bad boy of the duck world. People think they're ugly. They have warty heads and they're
Ah.
double the size of the other ducks, and they tend to be a little aggressive. They have big claws, and people look at them like, "Oh, that's terrible." But those are partially wild. They're not domesticated. They're feral domesticated ducks, so they have very little fat. In fact, most of the ones that I've eaten had no visible fat. If you want them to get fattened up, then you have to put them in captivity for a month and feed them a lot of junk food. You give them chips and candies and a lot of bread. That's the thing.
Mm.
You give them a lot of bread, and then if they don't have a heart attack, then you can go ahead and cook them, and the meat will be it'll have that marbled, fatty,
Uh,
almost like that Kobe beef that you're famous for over there. They
yeah.
become really lazy. They can barely walk. They can't fly. They just waddle around and eat all day.
Mm.
So that's the only way you can make them fat.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you in on a secret. That's exactly what bread was doing to me as well. It was marbling my stomach very, very nicely until I managed to give it away.
Did you eat a
It's
lot of bread before that?
yeah. I've always eaten a lot of bread as as a kid, I'd have a soup, mum would make soup, and I'd go through half a loaf of bread, dipping the bread in the
Wow.
soup. And yeah, my stomach was just like it was like a beer belly.
Wow, that's terrible. I know
Yeah.
when I was a kid, a lot of times when I would go sent to school, I had a sandwich. Sometimes my mom would give me a bologna sandwich. I would eat the bologna and the cheese, and then I'd give the bread to the ducks outside the school. I never really liked bread. It's just not one of those things. When we go to eat out, sometimes they'd have like a basket with bread in it, and they had these little butter things wrapped in paper. I would eat all the butter things and leave the bread there.
Mm,
My mom
yeah.
says, "No, you're supposed to spread the butter on the bread." I said, "Why am I going to waste my time with this knife trying to push butter onto the bread when I could just eat the butter and leave the bread?"
That's a very good point. The prize there is the butter, not the bread. And yeah, it's
Right.
just gonna rip the bread to shreds anyway, right?
Exactly. And my mom would complain. And then what she used to use, they had this super brand spread, which was some kind of vegetable oil lubricant concoction or whatever the heck it was. And then they had, I can't believe it's not butter. They had that
Uh,
goofy guy, Fabio or whatever, with the long hair.
mm,
So I can't believe it's not butter. And I said, yeah, I can believe it's not butter because it's crap. Just give me the
yeah.
real butter. I don't want this garbage.
Mm,
Margarine, ugh. Even when I was a kid and we used to make popcorn, margarine, I mean, what's the point? I mean, I don't eat popcorn myself now, but I do have a popcorn machine. When I have friends that come over to watch videos or whatever and they want popcorn, I'll make popcorn. I got coconuts outside. I had organic popcorn that I grew in the yard and dried that, and I use real butter. I just don't
mm,
understand. They use this microwave crap that's like in a bag, and you put it in the microwave, and half of it gets burned anyway. It's pointless. So, look, if you're going to
mm,
eat this stuff, do it the right way.
yeah.
Put full fat coconut oil. I've popped popcorn with lard. It works fine. But they, they use stupid
And
microwave popcorn. How ridiculous
the
is that?
the preservatives and the chemicals that'll be in that is probably yeah,
Exactly. And the
yeah.
thing is, I have coconuts all over the place. It's so easy to make coconut oil.
Mm. So you've got like trees outside where you can grab coconuts from?
Oh yeah, there's coconut trees. Plus, in the neighborhood, there's a lot of coconut trees. They're fairly common. And I have a friend
Um,
that he has a tree service. So whenever they do tree trimming, they take all these coconuts. A lot of the juice places here buy the coconuts and then they sell them as what's called coco frio, which is where they cut it and they put a straw in it and they suck out the coconut water. But I hate
mm,
coconut water. I usually just pour it out on the ground. I would take the coconut and then just get the meat out of it so I could get the coconut oil. I use coconut oil to make soap. Most of the
mm.
soap that I use is homemade using lye and coconuts or lard. In fact, I just got through making soap last night from lard, and I use lye and lard. That's how I make my soap.
You've talked a little bit about how you like to, recycle things. Like you mentioned, maybe it was before we actually started recording. You mentioned the air conditioner that your friend gave you, and you fixed that up, and you're making your own soap and things like that. Does that kind of doing it all yourself that gives you a kind of feeling of, this is awesome. I'm doing all these kind of things myself. I'm kind of self-sufficient and
Yeah, that, and then it's more of a knowledge process because I've had people tell me, and me and my parents used to say, "Why do you waste your time with that? You can buy at the time you could buy 4 bars of soap for $1. I said, sure, I
Mm,
could buy 4 bars of soap for $1, but I don't know what's in it. And second of all, what happens if I can't buy it? What if it gets to the point where the economy collapses? Oh, you're always talking about what can go wrong. I said, well, I want to know. I want to know how things work, and I want to know if I could be self-sufficient. And
mm,
that's one of the reasons why I do it, even though it's not financially, it doesn't make sense, but at least I know what's in it. And the thing is that I don't use any commercial products. I try to avoid anything that has a brand name on it. So, but to me, I got some lard around here or coconuts, and I have some sodium hydroxide, or I could even make potassium hydroxide from wood ashes, and I can make soap. So that to me, it just seems like a no-brainer.
mm.
It's like you said, being self-sufficient and understanding how things are done.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of, I'm totally not self-sufficient in any way, and but um, I like the idea of that kind of thing, because whenever I have something, I learn a new thing to do. I learn how to make a new thing, or I learn how to, I don't know, write in another programming language, whatever it happens to be. When I learn a new thing that I can accomplish, it's just that really good feeling of I've done it. That's another thing under my belt that I'm able to do.
That's right. And
Yeah.
I think that's important too. And besides the diet, I think one of the reasons why I've been able to live the way I have is because I've eliminated a lot of the stress by being able to identify problems and solve them without having to rely on anyone else. When you have
Mm,
to rely on other people to solve your problems, now you're adding in another layer of stress that can really wear you down because other people have their problems too. So by the time that it just adds up. You have one that adds up to another, and then it turns into a network of disaster. So the more that you can take care of on your own is a good thing. Whether or
mm,
not you're self-sufficient, because you still have to be around other people. But if you can
mm,
take care of your little circle of problems and then other people take care of their problems, anything that's in between you can work on together rather than having to try to fight with each other, because that's what happens a lot of times. People get emotional, they don't think logically, then they get mad, then you have to battle with them just to try to help them, and it's that is in itself bad, at least in my
mm.
opinion. It's the same thing with everything.
All right. So just getting back to the eating a little bit. There's one thing that seems to get talked about a lot regarding meat-based diets, and that's, grain-fed versus grass-fed versus grain-finished, grass-finished, that kind of thing. Is that something you ever think about? Do you think, oh, I'm not buying that meat because it's been grain-fed or anything like that, or?
Well, ideally, I would like to get my own meat. In fact, under ideal circumstances, I would be living on a farm
Mm,
or ranch, and then I would just buy the whole animal. Then what I would do is feed the animal like I do with the ducks. I'd feed them, for months the grass or the plants that I want them to eat before harvesting. But I don't have that kind of money yet, so I have to buy what I can find. If I can get my hands on grass finished beef, that's great. But if I have to eat the grain finished, I don't have any choice. I figure it's
mm,
better to eat that than to eat some other processed crap.
mm,
So, and the other thing is, I don't like the fact that most of the meats are aged or they're not processed immediately, because with my wild meats, typically from the moment I catch them, I eat them within a day or two. I don't
mm,
think it's necessary, but at this point, I don't really fret over whether it's grain finished or grass finished, because I know that the people I know that do raise cattle, they all use grass, at least in the beginning. I mean, when they're calves, obviously they use corn and other feeds to make them grow faster. But in the middle of their life, it's usually grass. Towards the end, I guess it depends on who's doing the finishing. But at this
mm.
point, there's really not much I can do about it, so I don't worry about it.
Yeah. That's kind of when I first started this, and this seemed to be a big topic of conversation when I first got into it. I was so worried about it, and I was trying to work out whether this is, grain fed, grass fed, whatever. But it's too stressful.
It
And
is,
what ends up happening is you're letting the perfect become the enemy of the good, you know. As you say, it's much better to eat something that's been entirely grain fed than to go and eat a loaf of bread or go and eat some other processed junk, right?
that's right. And bread is the one thing that really bothers me because my dad used to be very much into bread. But the thing was, when we tried to make bread, because that's what he wanted to do, he wanted to make bread, he could
Mm.
never get the bread to be the same as what you buy in the store. And I told my dad, I said, that's because the bread that you buy in the store is an industrial product. It's engineered to look and taste a certain way and not go bad. When we made bread, it would be hard within a day and it tasted different. Now, I don't eat bread, but the sourdough bread that we were making didn't taste as bad as the stuff from the store because
Mm.
if I put that stuff from the store in my mouth, it has a sweet, sickening taste and I want to spit it out. The sourdough bread didn't really taste that bad. I mean, I would take a few bites of it. It's okay. It doesn't bother me. And the other thing is, too, I was using other things besides wheat to make bread. I was making bread out of bananas. And you would think, wow, banana bread is going to be really sweet, but it wasn't because it's fermented as a sourdough process. But
Ah.
that was the thing, the bread is full of different products and it's not a natural food. So why would anybody want to eat that when they could just eat a piece of meat instead? At least yeah, it may be grain finished beef, but at least it's beef. It's got protein, it's got saturated fat, and it's got some minerals. I think that's better than, Frankenbread or whatever you buy in the store.
Exactly. Yeah, I was on an interview myself yesterday, and we were going through some nutrition labels on the backs of like packaged products. And it's scary when you actually spend the time to look at some of this stuff. First, you can't pronounce any of it. And you know,
That's
and
true.
second, like one of the food groups on the back of the nutrition label is like colors.
And when you see they talk about natural flavors, that always makes me wonder, what is that natural flavor?
It's like it must be it's some brand or something. It's like, from the natural flavor company, or some there'll be it's like in Japan they say natural cheese, and it's like just a brand name that they use to get
Right.
around the fact that it's not actually natural.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like they have a restaurant around here. I think it's called Natural Chicken Grill or something like that. I always laugh when I see it. I'm thinking, well, you wouldn't call it unnatural chicken grill or
Yeah.
UFO chicken. It just came from outer space. Like, where do they come up with these crazy names?
Yeah.
And I think what it is like a friend of mine was saying about greenwashing. I think they try to make everything so that it looks like it's healthy, but it's or health halo. That was another term they were using. They try to make it look like it's healthy even when it isn't.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you got to be suspicious of anywhere that says their product or their brand is natural this or healthy that. Because a product that actually is that, you wouldn't need to advertise it. It's kind of
Yeah,
like,
it's like I go through the garbage to get stuff for the ducks, and I found a box of Cheerios behind the grocery store. And I looked, and the first thing it says 100% oats, but then in the little print it says made with 100% oats. I'm thinking, okay, well but what's the good thing about oats? Oats are usually sprayed with glyphosate before harvesting to dry them out. So if you're
mm,
going to eat all those oats, you're going to be getting a good dose of glyphosate.
right?
And it's but meat has glyphosate in it. I said, well, it may have some, but it can't be much because by the time it's gone through the cow, it's probably been metabolized and broken down. But
Mm,
some of these so-called healthy foods, I have a can. I put parts in. It had crackers in it. It said no fat, and then you look at it, and there's like maltodextrin and all this other crap they put in there. Like, wow, and this is what people eat.
well, hopefully we're slowly but surely convincing more people not to eat like this because it does seem to be gaining
Hopefully.
momentum. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, now you
Mm.
have these personalities out there that are pushing the diet, and I'm sure it'll go through its phase. It'll be just like the low fat craze. Everybody will be doing it, and then they'll have all these products. Pretty soon they'll have carnivore candy bars or some other nonsense like that. And
Mm.
then the trend will peak, and then eventually and
Yeah.
then it'll be just people like us that continue to eat this way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's going mainstream once the food industry goes, well, we can't fight against this. We need to make some processed candy bars that are, you know, carnivore or keto. That's when, low carb and keto became mainstream when they started making processed food that was keto friendly.
Well, that's the other thing. And I would go to the store and I'd see these things that say keto friendly. I look at it, it's like there's sugar in there. Why would they, well, they have sugar alcohols like xylitol, and then you have
Mm,
dextrin and all this stuff. That's sugar. They're putting sugar in there. And then sometimes they use starch. They have potato starch and some other weird things. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's keto friendly. Yeah, because they define it by a certain amount of carbohydrates per serving. And you put like 20 servings in the thing. Oh, yeah, it's keto friendly. Of course, if you eat the whole bag, it's not going to be keto friendly anymore.
right. And the
Ridiculous.
thing is, as well, that stuff is not good in, like, some people don't metabolize that stuff very well. Like that for me, I would go when I was doing the Atkins diet, I would go to a store that sold lots of Atkins nutritionals products and get these, chocolate bars and all this kind of things, Atkins friendly chocolate bars. And they're garbage.
Yeah, exactly. I remember seeing in the store, when I was taking care of my mom, she used to make me buy these frozen foods. I look at there and Atkins food. I see, I remember Dr. Atkins. I look at it like, look at all these ingredients. This is ridiculous.
Mm,
And then you have like, it looks like pasta. They have like lasagna and all this stuff. So that's not low carbohydrate, but somehow they branded it as Atkins diet. And,
mm,
well, okay, whatever. If I'm thinking of Atkins diet, I'll just have a steak and some cheese, but that's just me.
right.
But
Yeah.
my friends say, "Oh, you eat bland food anyway. You don't spice your food." I'm like, "Why do I have to? I just, cook it and that's it. That's that's about all
Yeah.
there is to it.
So
I'm lazy."
that's a good point. After 40 years of basically eating this bland food, you still look forward to eating your beef, your eggs, your bacon, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And anytime if I go to the store, I walk to always to the back of the store. I look and see what meat's on sale, and if I see a good steak that's marked down, I get excited. So I'm thinking,
Mm,
man, finally, I'm going to have this delicious steak. And I love meat. Even the poultry, I like that, but definitely the steak. If they have lamb, I'll get that. It depends on what meats they have. Even the pork, they had some pork ribs on sale. I had that, and my friend's like, "Oh, what did you put on the ribs?" I said, "Nothing. I just roasted them." You didn't put any rub? No, I'm not going to put that on there. I just eat it the way it
mm,
is. But
yeah.
to me, it seems fine.
Mm. That's one of the other more common comments that I receive on my channel is like, yeah, but doesn't it get boring? And
It never
it's
gets boring.
no, I look forward to it. Like I only eat breakfast, and I get up. I probably have 3 to 4,000 calories for breakfast, and I look forward to it every morning. There's nothing that feels nicer than having that warm bowl of, you know, a squillion calories sitting down and watching some YouTube videos while
There
I'm
you
getting
go.
into it. Yeah.
That's like me having my own version of a heart attack burger. A lot of times, that's what I'll do. I'll watch YouTube generally when I eat, but I eat 3 to 4 times a day, and I eat
Mm.
anywhere from 3 to 6,000 calories a day on average. I've eaten as much as 12,000 calories in a single day.
Wow.
So that's why I don't believe the calories matter because I
Mm.
am super skinny and I eat a lot of food. And I'm over 50 and they say, "Oh, you're going to get fat. You're going to get fat." I keep trying to tell them, "No, no, I'm not going to get fat because I may be over 50, but I may have the metabolism of a 20-year-old."
Mm. That's right. Again, it's that internal thing, right? The
Yeah,
clock's
it is.
in reverse internally.
I don't know if it's in reverse, but at least it's kind of slowed down to the point where
Yeah.
I'm not getting the same thing that everybody else because I know when I do work, a lot of times they'll complain, "Oh, my back, oh, my knees, and this and that." I was yesterday. I had a friend of mine call me. "Oh, can you help me move some logs?" And I picked up the logs. I put them in my truck. We took them over there, and his 19-year-old son was helping me. And he tried to do it. He says, "Oh, my shoulder, and I got this pain." I'm like, "Okay, no problem." I just pick it up myself and throw it in there. I don't even think about it. "Oh, do you need help?" "No, if you help me, it's going to take longer. Just I'll take care of it." And I load it up there, and I don't even think about it. I
Mm.
do all kinds of physical work, and I rarely, if ever, complain.
One of the things I've found about being on this this way of eating is that I actually feel like wanting to exercise. Like,
You know, yeah.
it
I
may,
have to admit, I don't exercise. I hate working out. I hate the gym. That's probably why I'm so skinny.
mm,
I do not like exercise. But on the other hand, I'm very active. I always want to do
mm,
something. I can't sit still. If I sit in front of the computer too long, I get bored and I have to go out and do something.
mm, yeah,
That's the key.
yeah. So yeah, and maybe exercise is, too kind of, it sounds too much like going to the gym or jogging or something. But like, what I mean is, like, I'll rather than driving for an hour and a half or something, or rather than, driving somewhere, I'll go, you know what? I'm just going to walk
Oh yeah.
rather than taking the
I do that a
train or,
lot.
yeah.
Every time I want to go somewhere, I'll just walk there if I can make it. And I've gone, a mile or two. The problem is the
Mm,
climate here is so hot. You're going to sweat a
mm,
lot. But if it's cool, I'll walk everywhere. In
mm,
fact, my I had to take the transmission out of my truck. I had to borrow my friend's car. And after I fixed my truck, I drove over to his house, which is about a mile and a half away. And I just walked back home. I didn't even tell him, oh, you want to take me back? No, he was busy. I said, oh, I'll walk home. So he calls me up and says, oh, are you going to bring the car? I said, the car's right there. It's in the driveway. What do you mean? I said, well, yeah, I brought it. How'd you get home? I walked home. Oh, that's the way you are. You always walk everywhere. Why not? You know, I needed a fuel line and my fuel was leaking. I walked to the auto parts, which is about a mile away, and I walked back.
mm,
Didn't bother me. I don't have any aches or pains, so why not? Just go
yeah.
for a walk.
Um, so Rick, is there anything you feel you'd like to share about the diet or about anything to do with the way you're living that you think is important to mention?
Well, I think in order to live this way, you have to let go of some of the ideas that you have. And
Mm,
you have to get to the point where you don't care what other people think about you. Because if you're going to listen to what everybody wants you to do, you're going to end up in a bad situation. Sometimes you have to, as you say, go with your gut and see what works for you. Just because somebody else may be doing well on a certain diet doesn't mean that you're going to do it. Even with this diet, I know people that couldn't eat this way because they have ethical concerns or they say they react badly to meat. So it may be a good idea to make adjustments based on what you could tolerate. In my case, it turned out to be the animal-based diet that works. But if you're on a standard American diet, I'd recommend try this first and give
mm,
it time. Give it 6 months. And then if it doesn't improve for you, you may have to change. You may have to add some plant material, maybe vegetables or fruits, because I know people that do really well with vegetables and fruits. But the main thing is don't let some influencer or some celebrity tell you what to do.
mm.
Listen to what they say and try it for yourself. If it works, go with it. If it doesn't work, try something else. Even doctors, a lot of times they'll give you advice. Oh, you need to take this medicine or do this or that. And you can take it, but you need to maybe try something else and then supplement it. And like you said, just try to go with the way you feel. So, as the old saying is, think for yourself. And
Mm.
if you educate yourself and you think for yourself, your chance of success is much higher.
That's really good advice. That's really good advice. Think for yourself, listen to your body. Yeah, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rick, how can people get in contact with you?
Well, I have to admit, I'm not active on social media, although I do comment on YouTube videos. I don't do Twitter, I don't do Instagram. I'm usually too busy working. You could email me.
Mm.
My email address, which is the one on my YouTube page, is bobcat, the number four home at gmail.com if you want to contact me. Other than that, I'm not sure. Like I said, I go online, but I don't really do the social media thing.
I noticed that you have quite a few videos on your YouTube channel. Is that something you're thinking about maybe increasing? Like you maybe do more videos or?
I've been thinking about it. The only reason that I haven't done it is because it's been many years since I did video editing. I used to use Windows Movie Maker, and there was another Linux-based program that I use, and I forgot how to use the thing. So I tried to sit down and try to figure out the Kdenlive, and I kind of messed with it. But what I did originally with my videos was based on energy, because I started YouTube because of all the energy scams that they had back in like the late 2000s, all the people that were saying you could run your car with water and all these other crazy
I
things.
I
And I had a
remember
YouTube.
those programs. I remember.
It was,
Yeah.
and the perpetual motion is total garbage. So what I did, I set up a YouTube channel that was similar to like some of these other people they have now, that they talk about laws of physics and how things work and don't work. And I tried to warn people, be careful, don't fall for these scams because they won't work. Like they had one guy that built a so-called over unity motor that had a motor and generator that would produce power with no input. And I built the same thing and proved that it didn't work. And then I got into a battle with a couple of these YouTubers. Eventually, my YouTube channel got deleted. And then the other YouTube channel, which is the one I still have, called Charger Mopar, that was the one where I was working on cars. But then I had some issues with the local code enforcement. And then I had, the people from the other channels went after me, and I had videos removed for different reasons. Then my channel was deleted. Then it came back with most of the videos gone. So it was pretty much dormant for years. It's only been in the last maybe 3 or 4 years that I started to put some videos. And now with the whole interest in the diet, I put a few videos on there. So yeah, I'm
Mm.
thinking definitely if there's a need for it, but there's so many YouTubers out there. I don't even know if it's really worth doing. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I just think, given your experience, especially the length of your experience with this kind of eating, it'd be really cool to see more of your videos, and you got some good insights you can share. So, but
That's true.
I'll link to that YouTube channel in the show notes if that's okay.
That's fine.
And
Yeah,
Rick, thank you so much for being with us.
my pleasure.
Guys, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. Click the join button under this video or the first link in the description. Thanks again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.